hello, and welcome to the Cornfield. I'm Jamie Beeman, and I'm really excited because my very first podcast interview ever, these many podcasts ago, although I did reach 10, I think this is the 11th, uh, is here with me. She was my first interview. She's a good luck charm for me. She's an amazing artist and an amazing person who has an amazing podcast of her own. Her name is Melody Rachel. She's here with me, and I want to talk today about your latest show that you've done. Melody is an actress, she's a theater creator, she's a content creator, a podcast host, so many things. And we're talking, it's Thursday morning where you are, and it's Wednesday night here in New York. She's down under. So how are you, and how did the show go?
I'm really good, thanks. Yes, my show went really good, actually. I've still got the post-show blues. So I put on a show for Sydney Fringe Festival called Demo. I did a 5-night season.
Yes.
The show was about my response to political polarization in the arts, but I don't know if the final product that came out kind of was about that. What I did is I held up placards, like signposts, and gave the audience, it was full-on audience interactive, so I gave the audience options to choose between. So I started off with simple things like crunchy or smooth, Coke or Pepsi, and then I started to build the tension and up the ante, and then I went from like capitalism or tax the rich, Jesus or religion, and I kept trying to up the ante to see how people would engage. It was really interesting because people did engage, but obviously you've got it was actually really interesting. On the first night, a lot of my friends came, and I know they're quite a left-leaning audience, so they're like, tax the rich. But on one of the nights, some of my conservative friends came, so they were like, yeah, capitalism. So it's really interesting. It's like this crowd, what is it, like crowd fervor or something? Like, do I feel comfortable putting my opinion out there when there's other people in the room? What do I agree with? So essentially people just put their hands up and clapped at which placard they related to the most. And I just gave them to them. And then...
What was the name of the show?
Demo.
Because you do solo shows. Just for people who are unfamiliar, you do solo pieces on different themes, and they take different forms. This was called Demo. And how long was the piece? Because it was part of a festival, right?
Yeah, 50 minutes. 50 minutes.
Okay, so it was the length of a standard, like a solo show and festival situation or cabaret. And were you silent and just using your signage and eliciting responses, or?
No, yeah, I'm a big fan of oh, give me a sec. I think I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
I'm a big so I did a movement piece. It was movement, and it was me holding up these signposts. So the movement that I did was a external reflection of kind of what was going on internally. But yeah, I didn't use my voice. So you might call it the kind of theater, maybe you would call it performance art or live art theater, or contemporary performance. So it wasn't like a play. But yeah, I didn't use my voice, which I kind of enjoy. I feel like the voice is so authoritative, and not using it, I was able to connect with the audience in a different way. I don't know. Yeah.
You were eliciting their vocalizations, and putting up sort of provocative signage, which is kind of interesting, kind of speaks to what Peter Boghossian does with his street epistemology. And they put up a sign, or the guy with the sandwich board guy, going out and just having a statement out there that people react to, a slogan or an idea. So you were silent. So you weren't expressing a point of view. You were asking them to take the risk in a public space surrounded by others to respond to you. And how did they know what to do if you weren't instructing
well,
them. You know what I mean?
I've been told that I'm quite good, if I do say myself, at audience engagement in the theatre. I mean, it's my thing, essentially, my shtick. I just started off with this follow copy sort of thing. So the beginning of the show was me doing this movement piece. I actually had my back to the audience and I was waving to some imaginary people in the distance, and then I turned around and I started waving at the audience. And then if they don't wave straight away, I go point at them, wave, and then they get it, they wave back, and then I clapped, and then I did the teacher clap. I'm not going to do it now, but it's people in school, your teacher must have clapped, put your hands on your head, like that kind of stuff, follow copy. And then I went and got the signposts. And obviously with theatre and how to get people in, you have to start light. You have to start fun. So I think the first choices it was cats or dogs, Vegemite, Marmite, Coke, Pepsi, Crunchy, Smooth. And then, like I said before, I did start to up the ante, but with theatre, with this piece, I think I also probably imposed my own ideological worldview. There was some placards which I put up. Yeah, I put up lesbian and queer. Which one? To most people, those mean the same thing. Or a religion, Jesus.
Right.
I even put up, white privilege, female privilege. And someone yelled out, female privilege doesn't exist. And I'm just like, but it's just to elicit a response. What else? Feminism or men? I feel like we're pushed into these false dichotomies. One audience member, when I put up feminism and men, she was like, I'll take both because they're not mutually exclusive. But sometimes I feel like feminism does denigrate men. But by putting up these opposites that weren't actually opposites, it made people think about sometimes we're forced to choose between two things. So if I do say myself, I think it was
that is
you go.
That is very interesting because I've done that kind of performance before where, when I did 12th Night, for example, I opened the second act and I played Festi, and I had this bit that just happened spontaneously at our first preview where I had this little drum and I was beating the drum and people started to clap with it. So it turned into this whole Lotsie of getting the audience call and response with the rhythm and getting them laughing and getting them participating. And it was all done on a very kind of it's kind of a visceral level because you don't have this. But what you've done there, it seems to me, is you've proposed something as an opposite that isn't necessarily an opposite.
Yes.
And right. Either or, because it says something, because I know you. So I know that there's this, that a lot of us are feeling this feeling of you're either with us or against us. So it's either this correct, or this choice, wrong choice. So, wow, lesbian or queer. Do you accompany any of this with any mime or any? Can they see your facial expressions? Do you give anything away, or are you very neutral?
I think some of them are neutral, but some of them, I'm not a character. I'm just myself on stage. But the last set of placards that I brought up were lesbian, queer, and then sinner. So I feel like the gay community calls me queer, and the Christian community calls me a sinner. So it's like juxtaposing those two different things as well. And then I played around with the three: lesbian, queer, sinner. Yeah. I did like a dance sequence with the placards as well.
Was that improvised, or was that something that you had choreographed ahead of time? What kind of music did you use?
I just use I'm a sucker for some electronic house music. So it was quite upbeat. It was kind of improvised, but like there was a framework that I was adhering to. But most nights.
So you've in the past with your solo stuff, like we talked about your show, I Want to Be Mark Wahlberg. You've come up against some criticism and also some audience response that's been quite strong. And I'm wondering, do people expect you to be provocative now that they know something about you, or do they come looking for a fight?
I don't know if I'm at that level. I know I've made 5 solo theatre shows, so I'd still say I'm emerging. I'm an emerging artist. Okay. I think, yes, I think people would probably expect something from me that's different to the current, what's acceptable in the theatre. Like, I'm obviously not going to make a feminist theatre piece. I'm more likely to make a piece that questions some of those ideas. Or I'm not going to make a piece about being a gender identity, but I'll make a piece about gender that will question the idea of gender identity. Those sorts of things. But a lot of it, honestly, it's just a lot of the work I make is internal, sort of introspective thought patterns that I feel like we don't talk about enough. And I feel like by putting them out there can kind of allow people to sort of feel a little bit less alone in their struggles, I would hope. Some people can relate, some people can't. I've spoken about what it feels like to not want to forgive someone, or what I think about when I get socially anxious. I really think the theatre is a place that we can go to and sort of see ourselves in the work a lot of the time. So I like making that work as well, that can just unite us together and sort of elevate our common humanity, because we all struggle with forgiveness and anxiety, right? Something like gender is probably more political. But yeah, I probably enjoy the work.
But it's also something that a lot of people in private, in silence, in their own, protected space are tussling with some of these concepts that have become sort of very loud in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And don't know quite what to do about how they feel about it or what they think about it. Don't even know what they feel or think about it. So I know you to be very inquisitive and to be searching for meaning and searching for understanding. And it's one of the great things about your podcast is that it really is an inquiry. You're really very open and very, and you ask really great questions that are the pure questions that people should ask, but people talk around stuff, I find, quite a lot, instead of just going, well, why that? So I like that approach. Let me ask you something. This is part of a festival. Is this an annual thing? Is it twice a year, the Fringe?
Do you guys have a Fringe in New York? You must. New York Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
Most cities have.
It's like once a year.
Yeah, Edinburgh Fringe, like most theaters will have a Fringe festival. Sorry, most cities will have a Fringe festival. So yeah, I've done Sydney and Auckland, New Zealand. Okay. I'd love to go to Edinburgh this year, actually. Next year.
Should come here.
Well,
we have a bunch of different things. We have the United Solo Festival that's here and in London. I know a lot of these things are expensive too, because you have to do all your own promotion. You've got to handle all of your own expenses, and all that stuff can be very costly. But were there any parameters? Like, you have to submit what you're going to do to the festival for their invitation, right?
Well, the good thing about Sydney Fringe, and I would say this to any new artist that wants to start creating work, I would absolutely do a Fringe Festival. A Fringe Festival is an open access arts festival, so you don't have to, obviously you don't have to pitch your idea. You just say, hey, this is what I want to do. The first time I ever did it, which was 5 years ago, there was no pitch. I just signed up and said, yeah, I'm making a show about this. And I didn't even know what the show was at the time. I ended up changing the name. So I signed up with a name, ended up changing the name. Like, it's so chill. I don't know, in other places, either you have to find a venue, but here someone found me a venue. But honestly, for Fringe, you do what you want. You just have to self-produce. So you'll pay a registration fee, and they'll put your show in the Fringe booklet. But yeah, you're essentially self-producing. You pay the venue a higher fee. You charge ticket sales through the Fringe Festival, and then you just make a you're either at a loss or a win. But honestly,
so they do the logistical stuff, but you're pretty much on your own. You find the venue, you create your piece.
Yeah.
You
produce it, you market it,
the whole thing,
sell tickets. Yeah.
So there are no limits on your content. There at one point, like the last time I spoke to you on your podcast, we talked about land acknowledgements, and I've been laboring over an essay about this for my Substack, which I promise to people who read my Substack, I will write something again. I promise. I'm just in the midst of. Well, we'll talk about what I'm in the midst of in a minute because it's germane to the conversation. But they were talking to you about wanting you to. Asking that people do a land acknowledgement before their performance. And I know that you were struggling with that.
Yeah, I think I was, but it's so funny because
what'd you do?
The technician that I had, like, he must have not have known, but yeah, the technician that I had didn't. They just didn't play it, and I didn't say anything, so there was no land acknowledgement.
Something.
Well, no. So Sydney Fringe gave us a pre-recorded land acknowledgement to send, and I just didn't say anything. He didn't say anything, so no land acknowledgement got played. No one said anything. So I was fretting over nothing, I guess.
Was there any repercussion of that? Did the festival say, hey,
I just don't think people noticed.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Because I'm curious about it. I find it an interesting practice, and I'm writing about it. I did some back and forth sort of online interviewing with a opera singer who is a Native American opera singer, and about her point of view on it and stuff. So I was curious about that. So they gave one to you guys to play as okay. So you didn't have to come up with that, and you didn't have to spoil the conceit of your piece by speaking, which you didn't do in your piece. So that's good. And there were no other limitations. So what's the response been?
From my show?
To what you did? Yeah, like either online or reviews.
Really good. Really good. I mean, the only thing with me is most of the audience were my friends. Thank God. So lucky. I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. I essentially created and produced the whole thing. I didn't have extra money for a producer or a marketer or any publicity. I just put up Facebook ads, made a poster. But yeah, just invited my friends. My friends invited some people they knew. But yeah, to be honest with you, about 80% of the audience were people I knew. But I just think, as you're beginning out, and you just have to keep doing it. You just have to keep putting shows on, invite your friends, and if your stuff is valuable to audiences, eventually people that you don't know will come. But for this show.
Did you videotape your show? Have you thought about doing that and maybe having?
So I got a photographer to take photos of it, but essentially I was talking with my mentor. I don't have a director for the show, but I had a mentor, like a dance mentor. And he said the way I marketed it could be better. So I think the interesting thing is the first time you put a show on, that's not the final product. Mm-hmm. Like I might even change the name, demo. It's like the first time you put a show on, you figure out what it is for you and the audience and what's the audience response. And then you go, okay, what can I do better next time? And then the next time you put the show on, you can think, okay, how could I market this better? Okay, what parts need to change? Do I need to add anything? Like, and you keep putting the show on. For me, it becomes something new in a way. Like it never completely changes. The central theme doesn't change, but it just gets reshaped and
a lot of that's got to come from the response that you get from the audience because 100%. You're engaging them, you're asking, you're eliciting that. So different audiences will have a different response. All the more reason to do it in different places. Was there a difference? Have you done it now in both Auckland and in Melbourne? Have you done it in both places?
No, sorry, Sydney. I didn't take it to Melbourne. But
Sydney. Sorry.
Auckland. No, I'm deciding. I mean, the thing about Auckland is I find the arts community there. Yeah, a bit ideologically insular. So I'm worried about taking it there.
So they're more, do you feel like they're more far left sort of leaning, and
it just
it might be
depends.
more provocative what you're
Yeah.
doing? Or?
I mean, look, people, I don't know. This could be in my head, but I'm doing the podcast. I'm outspoken now. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like pronouns, but also like I like people. I just don't like this idea. Like I'm being open about all this stuff. I don't want people to turn around and start claiming, oh, her ideas make me feel unsafe. Therefore, we should cancel her. And maybe it's like
Wow.
pretentious to think of myself like that, but I've had experiences in the past where theaters don't want controversial or contentious ideas, and they'll listen to if one person complains or two people, then it's just like they'll shut down the show. And I'm like, man, if you don't like it, don't come.
Right. So I'm curious about the intersection of your podcast and the piece that you're doing, because I'm about in 2 weeks, against my better wisdom, doing a cabaret here in New York called Lived Experience, which I think, some people raise an eyebrow when they hear that title. And it is intended to be a slightly like, oh, what is that? Because there is some of the content that I write for my Substack and some of my point of view that I express in the podcast and on Substack is going to be reflected in this show. I'm doing a little bit of satirical sort of stuff. Everybody gets lampooned, far right, far left, both crazy sides get poked. So it's not biased that way, but I'm doing it intentionally to be an extension of this greater conversation that I'm willing to have in different spaces. And I'm wondering, it makes you fearful that people are going to connect the podcast Melody with Melody, the performance artist, actress, performer. But isn't that what you want?
It is what I want, but
eventually
people in the arts are so dogmatic. I part of me actually feels like it's changing now. You know how we have fear in the arts, and people are just over this like cancel culture. Like, let's listen to other people. I feel like the tide is
people
turning.
are being more open.
Yeah, because it's just like, yeah, I think there's a really loud minority of people that just say these things. Like, I can't think of any recent examples.
I'm wondering though, if you're doing a piece like Demo, right, where you're luring people in with this sort of like, crunchy or chewy, you're luring people in with things that are innocuous, and then as you move along, you're getting more and more sort of like into territory that is controversial and that is going to elicit certain responses. And it's beautiful. It sounds to me like it's a beautifully sort of luring people into a conversation. And I'm just wondering if being provocative and maybe getting negative response or getting protests and stuff isn't going to be good for business on some level.
It's not.
It's not.
It doesn't. Do you think it would? Do you think it would be like no publicity?
I don't know. It's a theory.
What's that publicity saying?
It's a question.
There's no bad publicity.
Yeah. And I just wonder, because I know you, and I know that you're not doing what you're doing out of a sense of trying to be provocative or trying to be confrontational. Far from it. You're really trying to open dialogue, and you're really trying to find out how you feel. All of the stuff you're doing is finding your way through these complex issues to what you actually authentically feel and think about them. So I think that is incredibly open. But some people are going to be provoked no matter what. Some people are going to react just to the existence of a sign that says lesbian or queer, for example. And I'm wondering if there's, I don't know, maybe I'm Pollyanna about this, but I feel like people find their audience, and that if there is a certain amount of controversy, that it attracts attention to what you're doing, and maybe doors open in more hospitable places. I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, I think I just Yeah, I think what happened last time, I want to be Mark Wahlberg. Essentially, like, I was involved with this group. I mean, I wasn't even involved. I was just part of their Facebook group called Speak Up for Women New Zealand. And they were just advocating for single-sex spaces, right? They weren't, you know, these groups often get called anti-trans, transphobic, hateful, TERFs, bigots,
fascist.
And it's just like, oh my God, like, there's nothing wrong with females wanting a single sex space. But I was like, you know, I was in their Facebook group and I was like, oh yeah, like, fair enough. Let's have, like, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. But I posted, I was like, hey guys, I'm making a show about gender and my experience. Would anyone like to come? And then they ended up posting it on their Facebook page. And then I think someone messaged the theatre or something. But anyway, the artistic director of the theatre came to me and is like, hey, we've received this from this hate group. And, you know, we just don't want like a hate group coming to the theatre. And it's just like, I understand, like, obviously you don't want gangs and murderers. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, how can you tell who's a murderer or whatever? But it's just like, yeah, if a woman... this trans issue, it's so contentious. It's like, if someone doesn't believe that a trans woman is a literal woman, surely they'll just walk by and go by their business. Or maybe they'll give you a weird look. Like, it's not, I don't think it's bigotry to think that. I think it's just a different conception of gender or biological sex or whatever. Like, some people believe anyone can be a woman if they just say they're a woman, and some people are like, no, like, a woman is a literal thing. But it's like, those two views, like, I'm more interested in how those two groups of people can just exist together, because as long as you're not being unkind to each other, you should be able to be in the same space. People have different beliefs about different things. That's the reality of life, but it's our common humanity that, you know, puts us in a position where we can, like, everyone's coming to the theater for this common objective. Like, we want to see a theater show. If we have different beliefs, that's fine, as long as we're not mistreating people, you know?
Right. And I always thought that the theater was a place where we tussled with some of these issues, like the great playwrights like Arthur Miller and The Crucible during the McCarthy period and all that. Like, it was where you went to chew on some of this stuff with your fellow humans and see the point of view of the director and the writer and what it is they're trying to get across, and controversy in that sense. When we had a newspaper media where there were, you know, reviewers that would write about these things and people would have dialogue about it, that kind of thing was encouraged as sort of an intellectual exercise or as a cultural sort of a dialogue. But now it really is. It's like, well, because there is a contingent of people who just don't want to have a conversation. They want to shut it down. They want to deplatform it. They want to cancel it. They want to silence it. And so I understand the trepidation, but that's, to me, then they win. Then they win.
Yeah, and you don't want to give, it's like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum. Like, you don't want to let them, and then you don't want to give into that because you don't want them to think they could just throw a tantrum every time. So, like, that's crazy, right?
Right. Exactly right. And so how do you get around that? Because they're not children, and they're well organized, they're well funded, and they're quite loud. And that's very difficult to have a conversation with someone who's screaming into your face. So that is tricky. I wonder, though, you know, I think about, there's never not been controversy in the theater. For hundreds of years. The Puritans managed to shut it down in England for 18 years over there. So 18 years, can you imagine? Almost 2 decades of no theater. All the theaters shut down in England after the glorious Renaissance and the Elizabethan period and Jacobean period. It's very strange. But like, I think about Mae West. You know who Mae West was?
No.
Mae West is an interesting character. I think you'd really enjoy learning about her. She was this kind of curvaceous woman who wrote her own plays, who created this persona that was very edgy. We're talking 1920s, 1930s. She did some films that were she was naughty. She was provocative. And she wrote plays like she wrote a play called The Pleasure Man, which was about gay prostitutes, male prostitutes in Greenwich Village, and produced it on Broadway. She did a play. She loved controversy and she loved attracting attention. It's how she got to Hollywood, you know. And she was a not real like trailblazer. And Mae West announced that she was doing a play called Sex. Nobody knew what the play was about. But on opening night, the police came and raided the theater before they had a chance to even speak a line. And she had a bunch of photographers ready to take pictures of her and her fellow castmates being walked out of the stage door onto a paddy wagon. And you can see pictures of them waving, hi. And it made her a star because people want to know. They want to know, well, if they're shutting it down, it's got to be naughty. It's got to be provocative. Like, ooh, you know. So it didn't hurt her in the end. But at the same time, even though things were much more conservative back then, there seemed to be room for stuff. Even if it was a stunt, there was room for stuff. And I don't think you're doing that. I think you're trying to create more conversation. And I just think if you're afraid to go to a venue because you might get shut down before you begin, aren't you in danger of playing only to your friends and like-minded audience people who get it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I was talking to Kevin Ray recently. He's a wonderful theater creator, and he as a theater educator, he's a teaching artist. He's been doing that for a long time, working with kids, and he came up against some DEI stuff, some of the bullying and really negative stuff, and has been quite vocal about it, which I applaud him for. But he made a conclusion that I'm going to go and make my own theater. I'm going to go and create my own works. He does these, what he calls generated theater, where he works with different disciplines, lighting people, sound people, movement people, actors, and they create theater together. And he says to people that he invites into the project, he says, we don't do critical social justice activism in my workspace. So that means we're not going to declare our pronouns. We're not going to do this, that, the other thing. So if you're not comfortable with that, tell me now, and we'll shake hands and part ways. But this is the way I'm creating my space. And he found a way to work with people without all that. So there is a way to do it, but it really, sometimes it means going out and being a maverick and doing your own thing and finding your own funding and your own venue and your own places to do stuff. I'm all for that. But I'm wondering, I'm just wondering if you feel like you can't perform in a festival, which is really kind of where a lot of these things are allowed to have their early development, because you're afraid it's going to be shut down before it starts. Like,
yeah, I mean, like I said,
I think it's the loss of the festival.
Well, I agree. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be, what is it now? October. It'll be February next year. So we'll see what happens. But
okay.
Yeah, I think I will do it. But an interesting thing there, Jamie, you said something interesting last time you came on my podcast. You were like, when we lead without resistance, we become just as bad as the militant activists. And I'm all about, sometimes I feel like putting my views out there. Like, I think, pronouns is kind of a waste of time. But if people want to do it, like, that's all good. But my operator for my show, my technician, was a they, them. And also one person that I invited, we never had a conversation about it, but I was nice to him. I actually didn't, no one told me until after. So I was saying, yeah, bro, yeah, man, nah, it's all good. Nah, he never corrected me. So maybe it's just the kind of people that, like, some people use pronouns and they actually don't care. And then some people use pronouns and they're like, oh my God, you need to call me this, otherwise you're a fucking bigot. A lovely young woman who was also they, them came. She loved the show, interacted, great. Like, and I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not pushing people away by having these sort of views. So as long as I'm not being militant about it, as long as I'm not like, no, it's wrong. As long as it's just like, oh yeah, like cool, but it's actually impractical, or I think it's the way you speak about it. But it's like, it's when you start just having a conversation about it and then people are like, you're a hater, that I have a huge issue with, because it's like, no, like we need to have conversations.
Some people are they're spoiling for a fight from minute one. They're waiting for you to say the wrong thing. They're waiting for certain cues that let them know where they will be able to place you in terms of your beliefs, your ideology, whatever that is. There are people who go through life now in this kind of fighting stance. And those people, you're never going to please those people, because they're never going to stop looking for a microaggression or a misgendered, moment. They're looking for it. So they'll find it. If they have to dig, they'll find it. If they have to provoke it out of people, they will. Those people are not within reach. But I think it's very interesting. Creatively, you're doing that. You're kind of bringing people in with this idea of this or this, dogs or cats, things that are benign, but also people have strong feelings about, and that most people can relate, that are kind of universal. There's a multi-layered little game you're playing there, and then as you start to introduce these other things, it's with the same kind of playfulness and the same kind of openness. So you've already got them, so they don't feel betrayed. That's tricky, right? Because you're not turning the tables on them and going, now I'm going to make you express your opinion about this. It's more like, we can be just as lighthearted and as curious and playful with queer versus lesbian as we were cats versus dogs. So there's design in this, is there not?
Yeah, there is design. Well, actually, towards the end of the show, I actually, I brought up a placard. I mean, I started off light again, like apples, bacon, and then I went to them, and I got the audience to respond. And a lot of people put us or we. One person put they, like they, them. but like, yeah, I think I need to rework the end of the show and think about what would make an audience want to respond to this. Yeah, and maybe find a way to entice them more, or make them more comfortable or polarized. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm curious about it, because I think it's the kind of thing that in the right, situation, certainly where you were putting yourself at risk, but it's the kind of thing that would make great street theater. It would. I mean, I'm from Boston, and there used to be, I don't know if there still is, but there was this wonderful marketplace, destination place called Faneuil Hall Marketplace. And it's these big, like, brick paved plazas, and it's a very touristy area. And there was all kinds of outdoor, performance art and mime and music and all kinds of things. I don't know. I just wonder, if you set up shop in the middle of a busy sort of a plaza somewhere and started to play your game, what would happen?
Yeah, well, the possibilities are endless. But I think as you keep doing it, as you keep creating, I think you work and you learn, and new ideas spring to mind. But yeah, it's in the action. I think keep acting, keep playing, keep testing the idea.
I'm curious, because I don't know yet, because I'm doing a big experiment with lived experience, because I decided to do this cabaret, not because I'm dying to do a cabaret act again, although, I spent almost a decade doing it, and it's been 20 years since I've done my own show. I've been directing other people's shows for a while now. But I did it because I wanted to do a performative version of the things that I'm writing about on Substack and the things that I'm talking about on the podcast. With my 4 listeners, as Michael Kostroff ribbed me about, which he's not wrong, not particularly wrong. And I don't know yet what's going to happen. I went to an open mic a couple weeks ago, and I took a song from the Mikado. You know any Gilbert and Sullivan?
No.
But in the Mikado, there's a song called, it's the Executioner's song, and it's the Grand High Executioner comes to town, and he sings a song called I've Got a Little List. And it's this Victorian series of lampooning various types of people who are annoying in society, and he's got them on the list to be and he's like, I'm sure they'll not be missed. And it was a way of sort of eliciting sort of not, woo, you're talking about certain types of people in the culture. So I've taken the song and I've rewritten it to talk about, pink-haired climate activists, splashing Van Gogh paintings with soup, and MAGA Karens having sex in Broadway theaters, just bad behavior. And I did my little song, but it was a kind of a hospitable little group of people who knew me, and it's little, not preaching to the choir, I think. But the response was good. I just don't know. I don't know what the reaction is going to be. And I feel like I have to do what you've done, which is ease people into what it is what my attitude is. I think that's very important. I think the tone that you set is really important. Like you want them to know that you're just having fun, because people don't know how to have fun around these kinds of things anymore. They don't know how to take a joke anymore. And I feel like there's a part of me that's kind of provocative and always has been, and is kind of in your face, and doesn't really care if you're, because I don't know. I always laughed at people who were really like uptight. I always thought that was the kind of person that becomes the butt of jokes because they're so pedantic and they're so judgmental and
but if we make fun of those people, it'll just entrench them further in their ways, doesn't it? There's got to be another way.
Yeah.
Even though it's tempting, you want to give it to them, right?
Well, kind of, but at the same time, I want everyone to laugh at everybody. That's kind of where I come from, I think, as much as Shakespeare was a propagandist, he made fun of everyone, even especially in his comedies. Malvolio is one of those uptight, puritanical guys who secretly wants to marry the Duchess and move above his station, and he has all these fantasies about himself, and he gets humiliated for being a hypocrite, basically. But it was also a different time. I just wonder. I wonder how things are going to go over. I don't know. I'm not being an asshole,
I'll be the judge of that.
But yeah, you're coming to see the show, so you'll let me know. So on the broader theme, do you feel, I know that this is your milieu, creating these solo pieces, and they emerge from your inquiry and from your questioning of things around you, and each one has been very different. I take it. What happens when you want to collaborate with other people and create theater? Do you feel like, because I know, being a professional theater actor, that there are certain things I'm going to have to do if I sign a contract to do an equity show. I'm going to have to navigate those things because they're entrenched in that.
Yeah, I think for me, I find it easier. Maybe I've noticed to work with older people who are not so entrenched in these kind of beliefs. Honestly, I've got one. Well, I think it's honest. I've been honest with people about my beliefs when we're having coffee, and it's fine because you're looking at a multidimensional person, right? I have one friend. Her name's Karolina Rostevsky. She's also a theater maker. Completely different perception of the world, different worldview, but we love each other to death. We have a lot of things in common, just different political views. But like I said before, it's about elevating, your common humanity and realizing that it's okay to have. I think the underlying value that we care about is having conversation. So
I mean, that's really what the theater should be about.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine her not working with me. I mean, she's older, right? She's 45. I couldn't imagine her not working with me because I have different beliefs. Younger people, cautious. I honestly think if I just put myself out there, I think I would just draw in the kinds of people that I want to work with anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
I think that's right.
struggle.
I think that's right. Yeah, and I just think I think you're so talented, you're so gifted, and you're putting yourself out there. You're creating content, you're creating your own work, and it should get an audience beyond your inner circle. And in order to do that, you're going to have to introduce yourself to people who don't know you. And I think I'm curious about both of our little foray. You've been doing the podcasting longer than I have, but I'm just wondering. I've started to be able to post announcements about my podcast things and little clips on my social media and not be pushed back against or lose friends and whatever. People don't. What I've noticed is, because a lot of my Facebook, I have like almost 3,000 Facebook friends, and I know most of them are people in the industry. And we all see each other's shit, of course, on there. But people, if I put up something that is, I don't know, that might be provocative in some way, people just don't react to it at all. It'll sit there without likes or comments. But nobody's trying to get it taken down, and nobody's, I haven't lost any Facebook friends from it.
I wonder if from our experiences, Jamie, we think maybe it's more, we think it's worse than it is. I don't know. Because I've definitely had experiences where I've posted a link of a YouTube and people have kind of piled on me. I think I was suggesting that you get over gender dysphoria if you just go through puberty. But I mean, at the time, I just deleted a lot of those people. I don't know if I'll do that today.
I see.
But just at the time, it was just like, well.
I don't know either. I mean, I know that you've posted some excerpts from a couple of our conversations where I was going off, and I saw some comments that are like, this is racist,
But there were also comments that were like, no, we agree. So.
Yeah.
It was half and half.
You have to be willing to take that risk.
Yeah. And you have to just not, you're putting yourself out there and you're drawing criticism, but you're also drawing in, okay, I can resonate with this. Yeah. And maybe carry on.
If you and I were to give 3 pieces of advice to people who are trying to do what we're doing, which is simultaneously trying to create theater, create performance, create a live experience around some of the things that we're tussling with and that we feel passionate about, and simultaneously doing podcasts like this, conversations like this, opening up those kinds of dialogues for people to receive and to consider. What are 3 things, if we were giving somebody advice, what do you think you'd tell people in terms of setting tone, content, navigating festivals that aren't hospitable, or not wanting YouTube to cancel you, or how would you put it? Because it sounds to me like you're finding your way to massaging your introduction.
I would just say be honest with yourself. You don't want to live, you would rather be hated for speaking the truth than liked for speaking lies, right? But there's a way to be compassionate about this kind of stuff. I would just try to be honest with yourself and be compassionate at the same time. Put yourself out there. These are my beliefs, but it's your people can detect what kind of person you are by how you behave. I think there's a way to behave, but I really think the more people that are just honest about this kind of stuff and are open-minded about having conversations, like, they're the ones that are gonna succeed.
I'm using your description. I really would wish I could see your show, because it sounds to me like you're reeling people in a good way. Like, you're not misguiding people. You're putting people at their ease, getting them being playful, getting them being interactive with you, vocally interactive with you, and then you're turning up the heat. Is that a good way, do you think, to introduce oneself? Because I think podcasting, these conversations are so great. You were my first conversation. Thank you very much for that. But I think it's a way to, in a way, by talking with you, I'm talking with whoever's listening. And I've always wanted to be truthful about what I think, but I want anybody I'm talking to express themselves freely. I would not want you to feel limited. So how do you welcome people into that space outside the unknown audience?
How do I welcome people in?
Yeah, like, I mean, if you want to build your audience beyond your base, you're going to have to promote in a certain way. You're going to have to create a sort of a presence online and stuff, directing people towards your work. And I'm wondering how one does that.
Well, with content creation, you are the niche, right? Your interests and what you want to talk about. I'm not particularly trying to talk about things that are, I mean, there's things like you can search the YouTube algorithm, you can see what people are searching for, but I think you really just have to hope. It's the same with creating theater. I literally make work about what I think is important and hope that it generates an audience. I'm interviewing guests that I think have really important things to say. I maybe also make videos where I'm trying to elevate things that I think are important. I think you really just need to go with that and hope people will listen. I don't think you can make or create to just gather an audience. So what I mainly talk about is, there's a different view around gender. I think it's really important. I don't see that elevated enough in mainstream culture. And also,
it's very hot. It's very hot right now.
And also being gay and Christian, like that's one of my experiences. So I interview people. Yeah, I interview people about the Bible. I mean, these are just all my interests, and from comments and views. And I mean, I've only got 450 subscribers now, but people seem to want to hear that. So it's,
So have you had any pushback to the content about faith and about the finding your way as a lesbian, as a person of your generation who is a person
honestly, the most pushback. I've interviewed people about I interviewed a guy called the Offensive Tranny. He's got some contentious views about transgender issues. Yeah. Most of the people on that post agreed with what he was saying. The most contentious thing, I think, is talking about homosexuality or being gay and Christian. But I receive backlash for that. Like I get told, "Oh, well, you're going to hell," or "Nah, it's clear. The Bible's clear. It's a sin." I would way prefer those kind of comments than have someone call me a TERF or a bigot for questioning, puberty blockers for kids. So,
why is it preferable?
I'm still trying to work that out.
Is it because you're really sure about your faith and that it doesn't insult you, it doesn't dissuade you from being firm in your beliefs?
And it's different being told that you're wrong rather than being told, "Oh, you're a hateful bigot."
Really?
I can't work.
Being
I can't
told
work
you're going
that
to burn
out.
in hell, the Bible says you're going to burn in hell, is
I don't have an issue with that. Maybe I've just grown.
I don't know.
I feel really bad for those people.
Okay.
They're not trying to defame my character. I think the people that would call me like a TERF or a bigot, they're trying to defame my character. Maybe that has something to do with it.
I find that fascinating. I really do. There was a television show called The West Wing that was super popular back in the day, and it was about a fictional presidency. And they dealt with hot button issues of the day, and there was this very sort of bigoted, Karen type who had a talk show, and she was a real right winger, like Bible thumper, conservative, loudmouth. And there's this meet and greet with press people at the White House, and the president is more of a Democratic liberal. It was written by Aaron Sorkin, so that gives you a sense. Played by Martin Sheen, and he has this confrontation with her, where he was going to be a priest at one point, so he's like a theologian, and he starts asking her about where it says in the Bible that homosexuality is a sin, and she brings up Leviticus, and he goes, "Okay, so if my daughter wears cloth of two different things, can I stone her in the street? You know, if my wife is unfaithful to me, can I, you know, kill her? And, you know, like all these other sort of draconian, weird, old, terrible things that are in the same chapter of the Bible, to try and sort of zing her about, because there really aren't many places that homosexuality is mentioned in the Bible. I don't know if you know this, but Ian McKellen, who famously came out when I was in college and I was coming out myself, it was a big, big deal that Ian McKellen came out. He makes a practice whenever he's in a hotel room. He takes the Bible, they always have a Bible in a hotel room, and he goes to the page that has this verse in Leviticus against gay people, and he rips it out. It's a protest, like, I think you know what? I just don't think it's that different, Melody. I think this whole gender thing of, if I believe that I'm a woman, is just as much an issue of blind faith and of belief without empirical proof as believing in God, or believing that Jesus hears you when you pray. So it's curious to me that one is very threatening to you to get on the wrong side of, and the other doesn't bother you at all.
Maybe it has something to do with societal structures as well. I don't know. Like, gay people were the oppressed group, and Christians, or, you know, they're seen as the oppressor. So if you attack the oppressed,
well, that's a thing. Like,
but
if
then
you
with the trans issue, then I'm the
you,
oppressor. So it's like, I'm hypothetically, obviously, you know.
Right.
Honestly,
I think it is curious. I don't know what it's like over in Australia, but here, yeah, if you express that you're a Christian, you're assumed to be a conservative. You're assumed to be far right, and that there's a sort of an equivalency between having far right political views and being Christian. And it's, to me, I don't think spirituality of any kind has to be aligned with any particular set of political views. I think it prohibits certain things. Like, there are certain things that you can't say, I believe in this, because it doesn't align with my faith. But it's curious to me. There's a lot of defense of Islam. Like, especially in England, there's a great deal of defense of Islam and of people being able to practice their faith, and women wearing the hijab or the burqa or whatever it is that they're doing. There's a great deal of defense of that, but not a whole lot of defense of people living their Christian values. And I'm curious about that. And because to me, that's very offensive, to assume your political views on the basis of your declaring your faith.
Yeah. I mean, with the Muslim and Christian thing, again, it would be because, you know, Christian are at the top of the privilege hierarchy, and Muslim they're mainly immigrants, right? So, yeah, Christian is like the dominant.
Yeah, but they're not. How many multi-millions of people practice Islam in the world?
Yeah, but they're not.
As compared to Christian.
I think Christianity is the dominant
religion. It's about
religion.
Coexistence.
Well, yeah.
It is, probably.
Well, to coexist,
but
you need that.
Not.
Yeah, if you're gonna,
in a society where the Christian religion is dominant, I don't know that it's oppressive. It's just, this is the thing that bothers me. One of the things that really bothers me. If something is the majority, it's seen as automatically an oppressor, actively suppressing other people, actively persecuting other people, because it's the majority. And I don't know that saying that is going to change it. You know what I mean? I don't think it's automatically because most people are white in America. I think that's a losing battle.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I disagree with that whole like identitarian sort of way of looking at the world. But I'm just saying that's how some people see things.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I applaud you for. I think it's great. I've had many spiritual searchings and trying on different things like chanting and Buddhism and things in my time. I've tried lots of different things. And I was raised Jewish, and I still have a great deal of affection for my Jewish culture, but I'm an atheist. But at the same time, there's got to be something there that makes you get out of bed in the morning, that makes you feel like there's more to life than the day-to-day, that there's some resonance, something that binds people together. I believe that. I believe that, but I'm a humanist, and I believe that human beings share universal experiences, no matter who they are.
I agree. I agree.
Things that are so essential. And I think that's really why the gender debate is such a hot issue, because we know that there's a core truth to that, of what is that there's this and there's this. And I think people are hospitable to all kinds of expression, but it's not being presented as expression. It's being presented as equivalent truth.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why this issue of what is a woman is, what's interesting to me is it's not what is a man. No one's asking Congress to put on the hot seat to say what is a man.
Yeah, it's because with trans woman and woman, you've got two sort of minority group, not minority, two sort of I don't like the word oppressed, marginalized, maybe historically marginalized. We can agree that women were historically marginalized, right?
Yes.
Can we agree on
sure.
that? Yeah.
They
okay.
were,
so we've got, and then there's a conflict of interest there. That's the only reason, right?
I just think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that people are defending the right of a young biological woman to alter her body, to take testosterone, to present, or at least to define themselves as a man, and then men transitioning into living life as a woman. It's all about women. The men are becoming women. The women are becoming men, but they're still dealing with women's issues around that. And then there are women trying to go, hey, wait a minute. I just wonder why there's this thing of needing people to create an equivalency, to demanding that people say that this is the same as this. I always felt being a gay man in particular, I mean, the idea of an effeminate man in our culture, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but over here, it's all about male dominance and the military and power and weapons. And, it's so phallic, it's insane, But it's like the idea of a weak man is very threatening. What they see as weak or effeminate in a man is very threatening to the order. Women being masculine just kind of traditionally has sort of inspired pity. Oh,
yeah, this whole thing's really interesting, man. It'll be interesting to see where it all goes,
gonna want her. It will be. I'm going to let you go, but I appreciate your sharing your experience, because I need all the encouragement I can get for my show. Lived experience, Triad Theater, New York City. I'll have links in the thing. And
I'll be there. I'll be there for opening night.
Yes, you will. And I think we need to continue to be very clear about what our intentions are. But I want us both to reach more people and to find our way, and not to just be in an echo chamber. I don't know if minds will be changed, but hearts might be opened. And it sounds like you're on your way. It's just a matter of how brave are we, and where can we situate ourselves, and how clear can we be against reflexive opposition in getting our message across. Right?
For sure, man. For sure. Let's stick together.
Keep making things. Tell people where to find you. I'm going to include links. I love talking to you, and I love your podcast. So tell people where to find you.
It's just my Instagram and Twitter handle is Melody Rachel K, and my YouTube is just Melody Rachel. So that's where I do my podcast. It's called You Know I, but I think I'm more just going for my name at the minute. Or melodyrachel.com is my website.
find Melody, make her a part of your awareness of the world. She's having really interesting conversations with people that you haven't heard from yet, and about things that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I applaud you, and I thank you for contributing to my effort, whatever that is. And I can't wait to see you again so soon, stateside, and for the show.
All right.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Love you, man.
Thank you again.
All right.
I love you too. Enjoy your day and stay tuned, stay strong. We'll see you next time on the cornfield. Bye-bye.